3 brutal months, 17 packages straight up stolen. The culprit? Our power-tripping HOA president, Brenda, the ultimate Karen. She'd snatch them off my porch, rip them open in her driveway, and wave at me like, "What are you gonna do?" The sound of that packing tape tearing still makes my blood boil. Every theft caught on ring cam, but cops said civil matter, not our problem. This entitled thief picked the wrong victim though, an electrician who knows exactly how to wire a surprise. So I sent myself one final package, something that would mark her as a thief so obviously that denial would be impossible. Let's just say when Brenda opened that box, she got way more than she bargained for. The whole neighborhood finally saw her true colors. Literally. If your HOA has a Karen like this, drop your nightmare story in the comments and tag your city. What would you do if someone kept stealing your packages? Let me introduce you to the players in this suburban nightmare. I'm Jake Martinez, 38 years old, electrician by trade, and apparently magnet for entitled psychopaths. I just moved to Sunrise Meadows, one of those cookie-cutter subdivisions where every house looks like it was puked out of the same beige factory. The divorce was final, I needed a fresh start, and this place seemed perfect. Decent schools for my 10-year-old son Miguel on weekends, reasonable HOA fees, and the kind of quiet neighborhood where the biggest drama should be someone's sprinkler hitting the wrong lawn. The smell of fresh mulch and suburban desperation should have been my first red flag. But here's the thing about electricians. We're problem solvers. Wire goes here, current flows there, lights turn on. We don't overthink it, we just fix it. What I didn't account for was Brenda Walsh, a woman who could turn a parking violation into a personal vendetta. Picture this. 47 years old, drives a white BMW SUV so pristine you could perform surgery on the hood. Always carries a clipboard like she's conducting a military inspection. The kind of woman who probably color codes her spice rack and measures her toilet paper squares. Brenda had been HOA board president for 3 years, mainly because sane people have better things to do than micromanage their neighbors' mailbox heights. This woman would patrol the streets with a measuring tape, hunting for violations like a suburban bloodhound on steroids. My first package disappeared on a Tuesday. Steel toe work boots. OSHA required, meaning I literally couldn't work without them. Amazon photos showed them sitting on my doorstep at 1 p.m. I rolled up at 6 p.m. to find jack shit. Okay, weird, but maybe a delivery mistake. Then Miguel's birthday gift vanished, a Nintendo game he'd been asking for since Christmas. Same story. Delivery photo, empty doorstep, my kid disappointed. The third theft was a replacement phone charger. $40 down the drain for something that should have been simple. That's when Mrs. Sean, my neighbor with the rose garden that looks like something from Better Homes and Gardens, dropped the bomb. "I saw an official-looking woman take packages from your porch yesterday," she whispered, glancing around like she was revealing state secrets. The crunch of dried leaves under her slippers made me realize she was genuinely scared to talk. The monthly HOA meeting was held in the community center. You know, one of those soul-crushing rooms with fluorescent lighting that makes everyone look like they're dying. The smell of burnt coffee and defeat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. About 20 residents showed up, mostly retirees and people with nothing better to do on a Thursday night. I approached Brenda afterward, trying to be the reasonable new guy. "Hey, I've been having some package theft issues. Anyone else reporting similar problems?" Her response was peak Karen. She looked me up and down like I was something she'd scrape off her designer boot. "Perhaps you should arrange delivery when you're home, Mr. Martinez. We can't be responsible for your poor planning." The sound of 20 people suddenly finding their shoes incredibly interesting told me everything. This woman was used to bulldozing residents, and the community had been trained to shut up and take it. But 2 days later, I spotted my stolen work boots. On the feet of Brenda's husband Dave, walking their prissy little poodle past my house. Same brand, same size, same distinctive yellow stitching that cost me $120. I casually asked Dave about his nice boots. His response came a little too fast. "Oh, these old things? Had them for months. Sale somewhere, can't remember where." Right. Because everyone forgets where they buy specialized work equipment. That's when the light bulb went off. This wasn't random porch pirate activity. This was organized theft by the woman who was supposed to be protecting our neighborhood. The same woman who could fine you for having your trash cans visible 30 minutes too long was literally robbing residents blind. Game on, Brenda. You just picked a fight with the wrong electrician. Brenda didn't waste time making her displeasure known. The week after I questioned her at the HOA meeting, My mailbox became her personal ATM. Monday morning, I'm sipping coffee when I spot the bright yellow violation notice taped to my door like a scarlet letter. Mailbox number font violation, Arial font required, Times New Roman observed. Fine, $50. I stood there, steam rising from my mug in the cool morning air, thinking this had to be some kind of joke. I walked to my mailbox and compared the numbers to every house on the street. Identical fonts, every single one. Wednesday brought another yellow slip of joy. Trash receptacle visibility violation. Bins observed curbside 47 minutes past pickup completion. Fine, $75. The woman had literally sat in her BMW with a stopwatch, timing my trash can retrieval like it was an Olympic sport. I could picture her there, clipboard balanced on her steering wheel, probably eating a granola bar while destroying people's day. Friday's masterpiece was my personal favorite. Lawn irrigation overflow violation. Sprinkler water observed on public sidewalk, creating pedestrian hazard. Fine, $100. The hazard? 3 drops of water that evaporated before I finished reading her literary masterpiece. Time for some detective work. I spent Saturday morning walking the neighborhood with my camera, documenting violations like a suburban crime scene investigator. The sound of my camera clicking echoed through the quiet streets as residents peeked through their blinds, probably wondering if the new guy had finally snapped. Here's something I learned during my electrician training. When you're troubleshooting a system, you always document everything with photos and timestamps because memory is unreliable, but pictures don't lie. Same principle applies to dealing with power-hungry HOA presidents. Mrs. Sean's mailbox? Times New Roman font exactly like mine. The Johnson's trash cans? Still sitting curbside Sunday evening, every single week. Half the neighborhood had sprinkler overspray that could float a kayak. But the real discovery came when I turned my camera on Brenda's own property. Her driveway had 3 cracks you could plant flowers in, clear violation of Section 4.7. Her house numbers were so faded they looked like ancient hieroglyphics. And that decorative garden fence she was so proud of? A full 8 inches over the height limit. I spent Sunday night creating violation reports with the same obsessive detail Brenda used on everyone else. Every crack measured, every faded digit documented, every excess inch of fence height recorded with photographic evidence. Monday morning, I filed formal complaints against Queen Brenda herself. The look on her face when I handed over that evidence packet was worth every penny of her ridiculous fines. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. Word travels fast in suburbia when someone finally grows a spine. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like angry hornets as I presented my case to the 5-person board. I'm requesting equal enforcement of community standards, I announced, spreading photos across the table. According to your own bylaws, Mrs. Walsh owes approximately $300 in violations. The silence was deafening. You could practically hear everyone's internal popcorn machines firing up. Brenda's face cycled through several shades of red before settling on something approaching eggplant. The other board members, Dave Thompson, Sarah Kim, Mike Rodriguez, and Janet Foster, shuffled through my documentation like they were handling evidence in a murder trial. These complaints are clearly retaliatory and frivolous, Brenda finally managed, her voice climbing an octave. The board reserves the right to dismiss unwarranted submissions. I pulled out my measuring tape, the exact same model she used for her grass inspections. Your fence measures 44 inches, Mrs. Walsh. Community limit is 36. That's not frivolous, that's basic math. But here's where Brenda showed her true colors. She dismissed every single violation against her property. Not one fine, not even a warning. Meanwhile, she doubled down on me, increasing my penalties to $150 per violation and inventing a brand new, frivolous paperwork submission fee of $200. The woman was literally making up rules in real time. After the meeting, something beautiful happened. Mrs. Sean approached me in the parking lot, gravel crunching under our feet in the suburban silence. "She's been taking my packages too," she whispered, glancing around like we were planning a heist. "My arthritis medication, grocery deliveries. I was just too scared to say anything." Then the Johnsons appeared, young couple with twin toddlers and dark circles under their eyes. "We thought we were losing our minds," Sarah Johnson confessed. "Baby formula, diapers, toys, everything disappeared. We started having deliveries sent to my office." Standing in that parking lot, breathing the scent of fresh-cut grass and simmering suburban rage, I realized this was bigger than personal vendetta. Brenda had been running a systematic theft operation targeting the most vulnerable residents, elderly people who couldn't fight back, working parents who weren't home during delivery times. That night, I created a spreadsheet documenting every theft, every bogus fine, every abuse of power. If Brenda wanted to play games, she'd just met someone who knew how to keep score. Brenda's next move was straight out of the surveillance state playbook. If you can't silence the opposition, spy on them until they crack. 2 weeks after my documentation stunt, I spotted a shiny new security camera mounted on a pole, aimed directly at my front door like a mechanical stalker, not positioned to monitor the street or multiple properties, laser focused on my driveway with the precision of a sniper's scope. The official notice in my mailbox was classic Brenda. Security enhancement installation for package theft prevention in high-risk areas. High-risk areas. The only thing high-risk was her sanity when people started questioning her little kingdom. This camera recorded everything. When I left for work, when I scratched my back in the driveway, when I brought in groceries. The little red light blinked at me like a judgmental robotic eye, and I knew exactly whose smartphone was getting the live feed. Time to fight fire with fire. Here's something you learn as an electrician. When someone's trying to steal power from your lines, the best defense is better equipment than theirs. I spent my weekend installing a professional-grade surveillance system that would make the NSA jealous. The satisfying whir of my drill echoing through the garage felt like striking back at every petty tyrant who'd ever abused their authority. My cameras covered every angle: night vision, cloud storage, motion detection, and crystal clear HD that could read license plates from 50 yards. That's when I caught the smoking gun. Wednesday, 2:47 p.m. My phone buzzed with a package delivery notification just as I was wrapping up a job site. Electrical supplies. Nothing exciting, just wire nuts and outlet covers for a home repair project. I pulled up my camera app and watched in real time as Brenda strolled up my driveway like she was collecting her morning newspaper. No hesitation, no guilty glances. Pure confidence born from months of unchallenged theft. The woman picked up my package and walked back to her spotless BMW with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced consequences. Through my phone screen, I could see her actually smiling as she drove away with my property. But the real show happened 20 minutes later in her garage. My cameras caught her carrying torn cardboard and packing materials to her garbage bin. My packing materials, with my address still visible on the torn shipping label. During my apprenticeship, I learned that when you're dealing with electrical thieves who tap into lines illegally, you document everything because their confidence becomes their downfall. They get comfortable, they get sloppy, and that's when you electrocute them with evidence. I started mapping Brenda's routine like I was planning a heist. Tuesday mornings, grocery shopping. Thursday afternoons, hair appointment where she probably complained about difficult residents. Saturday visits to a storage unit facility 15 minutes outside our neighborhood. Those Saturday trips were the gold mine. I followed her there, maintaining a reasonable distance, nothing stalkerish, and watched her unload multiple boxes from her trunk. Boxes that looked suspiciously like the packages disappearing from doorsteps across Sunrise Meadows. When I shared this discovery with the Johnsons, Sarah's voice practically vibrated with excitement through the phone. "We drive past that place every weekend visiting my parents," she said. "I've seen that white BMW there dozens of times. She's literally warehousing stolen packages like some kind of suburban crime boss." Mrs. Sean confirmed the same sightings. 3 neighbors, multiple observations, one inescapable conclusion. Brenda Walsh was running a theft operation more organized than most legitimate businesses. But here's where our HOA president made her most catastrophic mistake. Thursday afternoon, my cameras captured her stealing a package from Mrs. Sean's doorstep. Prescription arthritis medication for an 82-year-old woman who could barely walk without it. Instead of her usual grab-and-go routine, Brenda did something unforgivably stupid. She opened the package right there in her car, parked in her own driveway, in full view of my HD cameras. The sound of cardboard tearing was crystal clear on my audio recording. She examined the medication bottles like she was conducting inventory, kept some pills for herself, and threw the rest in her garbage bin. Stealing packages was criminal, but stealing an elderly woman's pain medication and discarding half of it? That was evil. I had video evidence of theft, possession of stolen prescription drugs, and destruction of medical supplies. But when I marched this footage to the police station, Officer Martinez, no relation unfortunately, barely glanced at my laptop screen. "Looks like a civil HOA matter to me," he said with the enthusiasm of a dead fish. "Handle it through your board or small claims court." Standing in that fluorescent-lit police station, breathing the stale air of bureaucratic indifference, I realized the system was rigged. Cops wouldn't help, the HOA was compromised, and normal channels were useless against someone who controlled all the levers of power. I needed irrefutable proof, something so obvious, so public, so undeniably criminal that even lazy cops couldn't ignore it. That night in my garage, surrounded by electrical equipment and simmering rage, the smell of motor oil mixed with the scent of brewing justice, Brenda had just crossed the line from petty theft to endangering vulnerable people. Time to wire up a surprise she'd never forget. Brenda's paranoia exploded into full-blown harassment after my police visit. Word travels faster than electricity in suburbia, and her retaliation was swift, systematic, and completely psychotic. She launched surprise property inspections of my house, not the neighborhood, just mine. Every other day, Brenda would roll up with her clipboard army. Husband Dave, board member Janet Foster, and sometimes a random neighbor she'd conscripted as a witness. They'd measure my fence posts with carpenter's levels, photograph my window screens for maintenance violations, and inspect my mailbox mounting like they were defusing a bomb. The woman brought a goddamn protractor to measure my driveway slope. Who measures driveway angles? The click, click, click of her designer heels on my sidewalk became my daily torture soundtrack. She'd park that pristine BMW directly in front of my house and conduct these inspections for hours, taking photos and notes like she was documenting a crime scene. Here's what years of electrical work teaches you. When someone's trying to find problems with your installation, you document every wire, every connection, every bogus claim they make. Same principle applies to documenting suburban terrorists. My cameras caught everything. Brenda peering through fence gaps into my backyard, photographing my garbage cans from multiple angles, even measuring the height of my porch light fixture. Apparently there's an illumination positioning ordinance she'd discovered buried in the bylaws. But Tuesday afternoon, she handed me pure gold. I'm reviewing security footage when I spot yesterday's smoking gun. Brenda approaching Mrs. Sean's front door at 3:15 p.m. sharp. Amazon had delivered the elderly woman's diabetes supplements, specialized vitamins her doctor prescribed for blood sugar management. I watched this elected community leader steal medication from an 82-year-old diabetic with the casual confidence of someone picking up their morning newspaper. But the real heartbreaker came 30 minutes later. My cameras captured Brenda opening Mrs. Sean's package right there in her driveway, examining the supplement bottles with obvious disappointment, then tossing them in her garbage bin like worthless junk. She actually made a disgusted face before discarding an elderly woman's medical supplies. The rage that flooded through my body felt like touching a live wire. My hands literally shook as I called Mrs. Sean. "I've been rationing my supplements because they keep disappearing," she whispered, fear crackling through the phone. "My doctor says I need them daily for my diabetes, but I can't afford to keep reordering every week." This woman was endangering her health because some suburban sociopath treated package theft like a recreational activity. Time for nuclear confrontation. I marched to Brenda's house with my laptop, ready to shove video evidence down her throat. She answered the door in a pink tracksuit that probably cost more than my truck payment. "Mrs. Walsh, I have video of you stealing Mrs. Sean's diabetes medication," I announced, opening my laptop screen. "Return her packages immediately or face criminal charges." Her performance deserved an Oscar. Eyes wide, hand dramatically pressed to chest, the whole innocent victim charade. "I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, Mr. Martinez," she said with a sweet smile that could poison honey. "Those sound like very serious accusations without any real evidence." "I have crystal clear footage of you opening her package yesterday at 3:47 p.m., I said, hitting play on the video. That's when Brenda revealed her true genius for manipulation. She whipped out her iPhone and started recording me like I was the criminal. "I'm being harassed and threatened by an unstable neighbor making false accusations," she announced to her camera. "I feel genuinely unsafe in my own home." The woman was manufacturing counter-evidence in real time, trying to flip the script. But while she was busy playing victim for her phone camera, I noticed something behind her that made my electrician's eye for detail pay off big time. Her garage door was partially open, revealing stacks of opened packages on folding tables. Dozens of torn shipping boxes, contents scattered like merchandise at a flea market, shipping labels from multiple addresses clearly visible. "What's that warehouse operation behind you, Mrs. Walsh?" I asked, angling my laptop camera toward her garage. Pure panic flashed across her face like a short circuit. She quickly stepped outside and yanked her garage door shut, but my video had already captured enough evidence to prosecute half the crimes in suburbia. "You're trespassing on private property," she snapped, abandoning the sweet victim act entirely. "Leave immediately or I'm calling police." "Please do," I said, uploading footage to cloud storage right there on her doorstep. "I'm sure they'll love your garage inventory system." That evening, I posted the video on our neighborhood Facebook group with a simple caption. "Anyone recognize their stolen packages in this footage?" The response was instantaneous and devastating. 17 families identified their missing deliveries in the comments. 17 families systematically robbed by the woman they'd trusted to protect their community. As I sat on my porch that night, breathing the cool evening air mixed with the sweet scent of impending justice, neighbors continued sharing their theft stories in an avalanche of comments and evidence. Brenda had just revealed her criminal headquarters. Now I knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. The Facebook post detonated like a digital bomb across Sunrise Meadows. By midnight, my phone was buzzing with comments, private messages, and revelation after devastating revelation. The smell of coffee and determination filled my kitchen as I sat there documenting what turned out to be the crime of the decade. Brenda Walsh wasn't just some opportunistic package thief. This woman was running a criminal empire that would make the mafia jealous. Mrs. Patterson from Oak Street recognized her stolen prescription glasses, $400 designer frames she'd waited 3 weeks to receive. The Hendersons identified cases of baby formula that had forced them into panicked 2 a.m. pharmacy runs when their twins ran out. Even crusty old Mr. Kowalski spotted his fishing tackle box that had mysteriously vanished last spring. But here's where my electrician training kicked into overdrive. When you're troubleshooting complex electrical failures, you map every connection until you find the source. Same principle applies to mapping criminal networks. Follow the pattern, find the truth. The pattern here was absolutely diabolical. For over 2 years, Brenda had been systematically targeting our community's most vulnerable residents. Elderly people who couldn't chase her down busy streets, working single mothers who weren't home during delivery windows, families struggling financially who couldn't afford to keep reordering stolen items. Anyone she calculated wouldn't fight back. My emergency spreadsheet, fueled by righteous anger and far too much caffeine, revealed the scope. Approximately $25,000 in stolen merchandise across 47 households. But the real bombshell came when I traced her selling operation. Remember those Saturday storage facility trips? I'd been documenting them for weeks like a suburban detective. Turns out our HOA president was running multiple online marketplace accounts, Brenda B_deals, Sunrise Bargains, and Meadows Marketplace. The audacity was breathtaking. I found listings for my stolen work boots, sold for $85 with the description, lightly used, excellent condition. Baby formula marked up 40% above retail price. Mrs. Sean's diabetes supplements listed as premium imported vitamins for desperate buyers. Brenda had transformed package theft into a profitable business model, complete with inventory management, customer service, and 5-star reviews praising her lightning-fast shipping and unbeatable prices. Yeah, prices are pretty unbeatable when your cost basis is zero. But the most chilling discovery came from analyzing delivery timing patterns. This woman had inside information. She knew exactly when packages were arriving, sometimes before residents got their own notifications. That's when the final piece clicked into place, like a circuit completing. As HOA president, Brenda had convinced UPS, FedEx, and Amazon to provide community safety notifications about high-value deliveries in our neighborhood. These companies were literally feeding her real-time intelligence about when and where to strike. The operation was sophisticatedly evil. Professional delivery monitoring, systematic targeting of vulnerable victims, organized resale infrastructure, and complete immunity from oversight because she controlled the entire HOA board. Wednesday evening brought the game changer. Dana Mills, a retired police detective turned private investigator, called after seeing my Facebook documentation through mutual neighborhood connections. "Mr. Martinez, "What you've uncovered constitutes organized retail theft under state law," she said, her voice carrying the authority of 20 years in law enforcement. "With this volume and systematic approach, we're talking serious felony territory. According to Dana, package theft exceeding $1,000 triggers felony charges. Multiple systematic thefts create criminal enterprise patterns. Using an official position to facilitate crimes adds enhancement penalties that could mean years in state prison. Back in my electrical days, we learned that when you find one major system failure, you'd better check the entire grid because problems multiply in ways you don't expect. Same principle here. Brenda's crimes had infected our entire community like a virus. The beautiful part about your documentation," Dana continued, "is the timeline proof. You've established systematic targeting over years, which demonstrates criminal intent rather than opportunistic behavior. Sitting in my kitchen that night, surrounded by printed evidence, victim statements, and delivery records, I realized this case had evolved beyond simple neighborhood justice. We had enough evidence to destroy Brenda legally and protect every vulnerable resident she'd been terrorizing. But prosecuting her after the fact wouldn't be enough. I needed irrefutable, undeniable, caught-in-the-act proof that would make headlines and ensure she never hurt anyone again. Time to build the perfect trap. Thursday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. My boss thought I was dying. I wasn't, but someone's criminal career was about to flatline. My garage became a suburban version of Q's lab from James Bond movies. I cleared my workbench, spread out electrical diagrams, and started researching die-pack technology like I was designing the space shuttle. The familiar smell of motor oil and determination filled the air as I dove into the beautiful science of catching thieves. Bank security die packs work on elegant simplicity, pressure-sensitive triggers that activate when someone opens what they shouldn't. Here's something they don't teach in electrical school, but every security tech knows. You can build these systems using basic components and non-toxic materials that won't get you arrested for booby trapping. I spent Friday morning watching YouTube tutorials from actual security professionals, taking notes like a graduate student cramming for finals. The key components were surprisingly accessible: a pressure switch, available at any electrical supply store, a small compressed air cartridge, paintball supply shops, and UV reactive powder that would mark Brenda like invisible ink for weeks. The genius of UV powder is its stealth factor. Under normal lighting, it's completely invisible. But hit it with a black light, and guilty parties glow like radioactive Christmas ornaments. Any cop with a UV flashlight could identify our package thief from across a football field. Friday afternoon, I drove an hour outside town to an industrial supply company. No point advertising my shopping list to local gossips. The grizzled clerk who rang up my purchases looked like he'd sold components for everything from meth labs to moon rockets, but even he seemed curious about my unusual combination. "Building some kind of security device?" he asked, scanning pressure switches and compressed air cartridges. "Let's call it a theft deterrent with a very memorable user experience," I replied, paying cash like a proper conspirator. Back in my garage laboratory, construction began. The fake package needed to scream expensive and stealable while hiding a mechanical surprise party. I settled on camera equipment, something an electrician might legitimately order for home security installations, valuable enough to trigger Brenda's greed reflex. The trigger mechanism was pure electrical elegance. When someone lifted the box lid, a pressure switch would fire a compressed air cartridge loaded with UV powder. 3-second delay, enough time for the thief to commit fully before the purple justice explosion. Testing phase was the most fun I'd had in months. My backyard looked like a purple bomb had detonated as I fine-tuned pressure settings and powder distribution. After 12 successful tests coating various targets, I'd perfected a system that could turn a watermelon into a radioactive grape from 6 inches away. But hardware was only half the equation. I needed witness coordination, documentation strategy, and legal air cover to make this trap bulletproof. Saturday morning brought a clandestine meeting in the Johnsons' kitchen. The sound of coffee brewing mixed with whispered conspiracy as we planned our community sting operation, like suburban special forces. Mrs. Shawn would position herself at her kitchen window, perfect angle for phone video recording. The Johnsons would garden in their front yard while filming backup footage. Mr. Patterson agreed to speed dial police the instant Brenda touched the package. Even old Mr. Kowalski volunteered to be a witness from his porch rocking chair. "What if she doesn't take the bait?" Sarah Johnson asked, her toddler trying to grab my coffee mug. "This woman has stolen packages for 2 years without missing a high-value opportunity," I explained. "Asking Brenda to resist an expensive unguarded package is like asking a vampire to ignore a blood bank." Sunday evening, I crafted the social media honey trap, posted Facebook photos of my amazing new camera equipment arriving Monday, professional surveillance gear supposedly worth $850. Made sure to mention working late all week and being excited to install my new security system. Within 90 minutes, Brenda had not only liked the post, but commented, "Hope your expensive equipment stays safe." The emoji usage was particularly sinister, like a serial killer sending flowers to victim families. Monday morning brought final preparations with the precision of a NASA launch. I printed authentic-looking shipping labels from a fake camera company, complete with tracking barcodes and bright red, high-value stickers that practically screamed, "Steal me." The package weight felt convincingly real. I'd loaded it with old electrical components to simulate expensive equipment. Everything had to pass the shake test when Brenda inevitably picked it up to evaluate her potential score. Timing was critical. Brenda's theft pattern showed consistent early afternoon strikes when working residents were safely absent. I'd deploy the bait at 11 a.m., perform my usual departure routine, and let criminal psychology handle the rest. As I made final trigger adjustments, I thought about every vulnerable neighbor this predator had victimized. Mrs. Shawn rationing diabetes medication, the Hendersons panicking over missing baby formula, elderly residents too afraid to order necessities online. This trap wasn't just about catching one thief. It was about liberating an entire community from systematic terrorism disguised as HOA leadership. I positioned the irresistible package prominently on my doorstep, drove away with cameras rolling, and settled in to wait for justice to explode in brilliant purple. "Game time, Brenda. Let's see how you handle some real consequences." Brenda's paranoia reached nuclear levels after my Facebook post went viral. By Tuesday morning, she'd transformed from suburban tyrant into full-blown surveillance stalker, and her desperation was starting to show cracks in that perfectly manicured facade. She began driving past my house every hour, sometimes parking across the street to stare at my front door like she was casing a bank robbery. The woman had zero subtlety. That white BMW might as well have had "Stalker" painted on the hood in hot pink letters. But here's where Brenda revealed just how far she'd fallen down the criminal rabbit hole. Wednesday afternoon, I caught her on camera attempting to disable my security system. Not just tampering, full-on sabotage with wire cutters and a screwdriver, trying to blind my cameras before her next theft operation. The irony was delicious. Here's this woman who'd spent years nitpicking residents about mailbox violations, now creeping around my property at 3 a.m. like a common burglar. The sound of her designer heels clicking on my driveway in the middle of the night should have been enough to wake the whole neighborhood. What she didn't know was that my electrician paranoia had kicked in months ago. When someone's been stealing your packages, you don't just install one camera. You install a whole network with backup power supplies, cloud storage, and redundant recording systems. Every angle covered, every wire protected, every attempt at sabotage documented in crystal clear HD. Thursday morning brought escalation that crossed every line imaginable. Brenda hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on my personal life, my divorce, my work history, anything she could weaponize to destroy my credibility before I could destroy hers. The PI she chose was either desperate for money or completely incompetent, because he approached Mrs. Shawn directly, asking questions about my mental stability and whether I'd ever shown violent tendencies toward neighbors. And the man might as well have worn a sign reading, "I'm here to intimidate elderly witnesses." Mrs. Shawn, bless her heart, recorded the entire conversation on her phone and brought me the footage that evening. The sound of this sleazy investigator pressuring an 82-year-old woman to lie about my character made my blood pressure spike into stroke territory. "Mrs. Walsh is concerned about neighborhood safety," the PI said, his voice oozing fake concern. "Any information about Mr. Martinez's behavior would be greatly appreciated." "That young man has been nothing but helpful and respectful," Mrs. Shawn replied with the steel backbone of someone who'd survived 8 decades of bullshit. "You can tell Mrs. Walsh I said that." But here's where Brenda made her most catastrophic mistake yet. Instead of backing down after her intimidation attempt failed, she doubled down with a move so desperate it belonged in a soap opera. Friday afternoon, she planted evidence in my yard, I'm reviewing security footage from the previous night when I spot her creeping across my lawn at 2:17 a.m., carrying what looks like a damaged garden gnome. She positioned this broken decoration near my fence line, photographed it from multiple angles with professional lighting equipment, then filed a police report claiming I'd vandalized community property. The woman had literally brought props for her frame-up job. Who carries professional photography lights for a 2 a.m. evidence-planting expedition? But remember how I mentioned electricians are natural troubleshooters? My camera system had captured everything in night vision detail. Brenda arriving with the broken gnome, staging the damage scene, even her satisfied smile as she photographed her handiwork. Saturday morning, 2 police officers showed up at my door with Brenda's vandalism report. Officer Martinez, still no relation unfortunately, looked about as enthusiastic as someone attending their own root canal. "Sir, we have a report of property destruction involving a decorative garden ornament," he said, reading from Brenda's complaint with obvious skepticism. "Officers, I'd like to show you something," I replied, pulling up my security footage on my phone. "This is my property at 2:17 a.m. yesterday." Watching their faces change as they observed Brenda's midnight performance was better than Christmas morning. The evidence was so clear, so undeniably damning, that even these tired cops couldn't ignore it. "Well, that's interesting," Officer Martinez said, making notes. "Mind if we get a copy of this footage? The mini twist that sealed Brenda's fate?" While we were standing in my driveway discussing her evidence-planting adventure, she drove by slowly in her BMW, trying to eavesdrop on the conversation with police. The woman literally couldn't stay away from crime scenes, even when she was the perpetrator. Both officers spotted her surveillance pass and something clicked in their professional cop brains. This wasn't just about package theft anymore. This was about a pattern of escalating criminal behavior that was spiraling out of control. That afternoon, I got a call from Detective Sarah Kim, not the HOA board member, different person entirely. Word about Brenda's frame-up attempt had reached the Criminal Investigation Division, and they were finally taking our package theft report seriously. "Mr. Martinez, we'd like to coordinate with you on a controlled operation," she said. "If you're still planning to set that trap, we'd like to have officers positioned nearby to ensure everything is documented properly." The trap was still set for Monday, but now, instead of just neighborhood witnesses, I'd have professional law enforcement ready to arrest Brenda red-handed, or should I say purple-handed. Game over, Brenda. Time to face some real consequences. Monday morning arrived with the tension of a live wire waiting to short-circuit. The trap package sat on my doorstep like a purple powder time bomb, while Brenda's desperation reached levels that would embarrass reality TV stars. By 9 a.m., she'd already driven past my house 4 times, each pass slower and more obvious than the last. The woman had abandoned all pretense of subtlety. Her BMW practically had "Guilty Stalker" written in neon across the windshield. But here's where Brenda's paranoia transformed into something genuinely dangerous. She'd apparently spent the weekend recruiting backup from outside the neighborhood because Monday brought visitors I'd never seen before. Around 10:30, a beat-up pickup truck pulled up to her house, and 2 sketchy-looking guys started unloading what appeared to be surveillance equipment. Not the kind you buy at Best Buy, the professional-grade stuff that screams, "I have questionable intentions." Dicky. My cameras caught everything as these characters set up their own monitoring station aimed directly at my property. Brenda was building a counter-surveillance operation like some kind of suburban spy thriller gone wrong. The irony was thick enough to cut with wire strippers. This woman who'd violated every privacy boundary in the neighborhood was now treating my house like a military target that required professional surveillance to defeat. But the real revelation came when I enhanced the audio from my directional microphone. These weren't just random hired muscle. They were discussing specific plans to disable the target's recording capability and create reasonable doubt about any evidence. Brenda was planning to sabotage my trap operation with the kind of precision usually reserved for heist movies. The smell of criminal desperation was practically wafting through my security monitors. I immediately called Detective Kim to report the escalation. Her response was swift and professional. Undercover officers would be positioned throughout the neighborhood within an hour, and additional units would monitor Brenda's suspicious associates. "Mr. Martinez, this has evolved beyond simple package theft," she said, her voice carrying the weight of serious criminal investigation. "We're looking at conspiracy, witness intimidation, and organized criminal activity." By noon, the tension was electric. My phone buzzed constantly with updates from neighbor witnesses. Mrs. Sean reported strange men with binoculars watching my house from Brenda's driveway. The Johnsons spotted someone tampering with streetlight wiring, possibly trying to create darkness for the afternoon operation. The most disturbing development came from Mr. Patterson, who'd overheard Brenda on her phone making what sounded like threats. "This ends today, one way or another. I don't care what it takes." The woman was talking like a mob boss planning a hit, not an HOA president dealing with a package theft investigation. Her complete psychological breakdown was happening in real time, and everyone could see it except apparently her. But here's the mini twist that changed everything. While Brenda was busy orchestrating her counter-surveillance operation, she made a crucial tactical error. At 1:47 p.m., one of her hired associates approached my bait package for a preliminary inspection, essentially casing the trap before Brenda made her move. What he didn't know was that my pressure trigger was sensitive enough to activate from examination, not just removal. The purple dye explosion caught him completely off guard. One second he was poking my fake package with a stick, the next he was covered head to toe in UV powder, screaming profanities that echoed across 3 blocks. The beautiful chaos that followed was better than any movie. This guy stumbled around my front yard like a purple zombie, leaving glowing handprints on everything he touched while trying to figure out what had hit him. Brenda's panicked voice carried across the neighborhood as she screamed at her contaminated associate, "Get in the truck! Get in the truck right now!" But the damage was done. My cameras had captured everything, and her hired muscle was now walking evidence of criminal conspiracy. Detective Kim's unmarked unit moved in immediately. The sight of police surrounding Brenda's associates while they were still glowing purple was absolutely poetic. Her carefully planned sabotage operation had backfired into a gift-wrapped arrest opportunity. But Brenda herself was still uncontaminated and still fixated on my original trap package. Even with her backup plan exploding in purple chaos, she couldn't resist the lure of what she thought was expensive camera equipment. At 2:15 p.m., with police watching from concealed positions and her associate being questioned in the back of a patrol car, Brenda made her final approach to my doorstep. The woman's face showed pure determination mixed with desperate greed. This wasn't just about stealing anymore. This was about proving she could still outsmart the system, still get away with crimes that had defined her identity for years. My heart pounded as I watched through my phone from 3 blocks away. Every neighbor witness was in position. Every camera was recording. Every piece of evidence was aligned for the perfect convergence of justice and stupidity. Brenda reached for my trap package with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences for criminal behavior. The purple powder was armed, the pressure trigger was set, and the most satisfying moment in suburban justice history was about to explode across my front porch. 3, 2, 1. Time for the fireworks to begin. 2:17 p.m. Brenda Walsh reached for my trap package with the confident smile of someone who'd stolen hundreds of deliveries without consequences. The pressure trigger activated the instant she lifted the box lid. Boom! The die pack exploded with a satisfying whoosh that echoed across the entire neighborhood like a purple cannon blast. Bright violet powder erupted from the package in a beautiful mushroom cloud, coating Brenda from head to toe in the most spectacular criminal marking I'd ever witnessed. Her scream could probably be heard in the next county. "What the hell?" she shrieked, stumbling backward as purple dye continued raining down like radioactive confetti. The visual impact was absolutely perfect. Brenda's pristine white outfit transformed into a tie-dye nightmare. Her carefully styled hair now looked like she'd been dunked in grape juice. Even her designer sunglasses were completely purple, giving her the appearance of a demented superhero. But the real beauty was her white BMW interior. The explosion had happened while she held the package near her open car door, and purple dye had painted everything: seats, dashboard, steering wheel, even the roof liner. Her pristine vehicle now looked like it had been vandalized by angry Teletubbies. Mrs. Sean emerged from her house with her phone recording, practically cackling with 82 years' worth of stored-up satisfaction. "Got you red-handed, or should I say purple-handed," she called out, her voice carrying the joy of someone finally seeing justice. The Johnsons appeared from behind their gardening with professional-quality video equipment, capturing every angle of Brenda's purple panic. Even Mr. Patterson materialized with his phone, documenting the criminal marking that would last for weeks. Brenda's reaction was pure desperation mixed with denial. "This is assault. This is illegal booby trapping. Someone call the police," she screamed, purple dye dripping from her chin like guilty evidence. "Ma'am, the police are already here," came Detective Kim's voice from behind her. The look on Brenda's face when she turned to see 3 unmarked police units and 2 uniformed officers was worth every hour I'd spent planning this trap. Pure shock, followed by the dawning realization that her criminal career was ending in the most public, humiliating way possible. "Brenda Walsh, you're under arrest for multiple counts of mail theft, conspiracy, witness intimidation, and criminal trespassing," Detective Kim announced, pulling out handcuffs that would soon be as purple as everything else Brenda touched. "You can't prove anything," Brenda protested, still trying to wipe purple dye from her eyes. "This is entrapment." Detective Kim smiled with the satisfaction of a cop who'd been waiting months for this moment. "Ma'am, we have video evidence of you stealing packages for over 2 years, plus footage of you planting false evidence and attempting to sabotage security equipment. The purple dye is just the cherry on top." The handcuffs going on while she was still glowing purple was poetry in motion. Every surface Brenda had touched, her car door, the package, even the arresting officer's sleeve, now carried purple evidence of her guilt. But the real mic drop moment came when I arrived on scene, pulling up just as the local news van rounded the corner. Channel 7 had been monitoring police scanners and caught wind of the HOA president package theft arrest. "Mrs. Walsh," I said, approaching with my laptop full of evidence, "I believe this belongs to the community." I handed Detective Kim a USB drive containing 2 years of theft documentation, victim statements from 47 families, financial records showing her illegal resale operation, and video evidence of every crime she'd committed. The reporter interviewing purple-stained Brenda was having the time of her life. "Mrs. Walsh, how do you respond to allegations that you've been systematically stealing packages from vulnerable residents?" Brenda's answer, delivered while covered in purple dye and handcuffed in front of news cameras, was classic. "This is a conspiracy by disgruntled residents who don't appreciate proper community leadership." Even the cops were struggling not to laugh. Here's a woman caught purple-handed with a car full of stolen goods, claiming she was the victim of a conspiracy. The crowd of neighborhood witnesses had grown to over 30 people, all filming and cheering as their tormentor was finally held accountable. The sound of applause mixed with camera clicks and news van generators created a symphony of suburban justice. "One final question, Mrs. Walsh," the reporter continued. "Any message for residents whose packages you've stolen?" Brenda looked directly into the camera, purple dye still dripping from her hair, and delivered the most tone-deaf response in criminal history. "I was protecting this community from package theft." The collective laughter from 30 witnesses echoed through Sunrise Meadows as police loaded our purple-stained former dictator into the back of a patrol car, her white BMW being towed as evidence in multiple felony cases. Detective Kim approached me as the circus wound down. "Mr. Martinez, that was some beautiful police work. Ever consider a career change?" I looked around at my liberated neighborhood, breathing the sweet air of justice mixed with the lingering scent of purple dye powder. "Thanks, Detective, but I think I'll stick to installing electrical systems, though I might offer dye trap consultation as a side business." 6 months later, Sunrise Meadows looked like a completely different neighborhood. The smell of barbecue smoke and children's laughter had replaced the tension that used to hang in the air like storm clouds whenever Brenda made her rounds with that damn clipboard. The legal victory was swift and satisfying. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including 2 years of HD video documentation and purple dye that wouldn't wash off for 3 weeks, Brenda pled guilty to 47 counts of mail theft, conspiracy, witness intimidation, and abuse of office. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in county jail, 3 years supervised probation, and full restitution to all victims totaling $31,000. Her husband Dave filed for divorce before the purple dye completely faded, claiming he'd had no knowledge of her criminal enterprise. The house went up for sale within a month. But the real transformation happened in our community itself. With Brenda gone, the HOA board dissolved and reformed with actual residents who wanted to improve the neighborhood instead of terrorizing it. Mrs. Sean was elected president by unanimous vote, bringing 8 decades of common sense to community leadership. Package theft dropped to 0 immediately. Funny how removing the thief solved the crime problem. Families who'd been afraid to order anything online started receiving deliveries again without fear. The Hendersons could finally order baby supplies without panic attacks about missing formula. The best part was watching our community heal from years of systematic abuse. Neighbors who'd been afraid to speak up during Brenda's reign started organizing block parties, community gardens, and actually talking to each other instead of hiding behind closed doors. 3 months after the arrest, we held our first annual Purple Justice Day, a neighborhood festival celebrating the end of tyranny with purple-themed everything. Purple balloons, grape punch, violet cupcakes, and a costume contest where half the kids dressed up as superheroes covered in glitter. Mrs. Sean won the costume contest dressed as Captain Purple, complete with a cape and a fake dye pack that shot confetti. The woman had embraced her role as neighborhood hero with the enthusiasm of someone who'd waited 82 years to see real justice. We used the recovered evidence from Brenda's storage unit to create the Sunrise Meadows Mutual Aid Program. All the stolen items she'd been hoarding got returned to rightful owners or donated to families in need. Her illegal profits funded a community scholarship for trade school students. Seemed fitting that her theft money would help young people learn honest skills. My electrician business exploded after the local news coverage. Apparently, word spreads fast when you're the guy who caught a suburban crime boss with a purple dye pack. I started getting calls from neighborhoods across 3 counties asking for package theft consultation and security system installations. The most satisfying development was the ripple effect beyond our community. Brenda's case inspired new state legislation requiring HOA board oversight and financial transparency. Other neighborhoods started documenting their own petty tyrants, and several copycat dye pack operations successfully caught package thieves across the region. Detective Kim told me that package theft prosecutions increased 400% in our county after the Purple Brenda case made headlines. Turns out most thieves weren't prepared for victims who fought back with engineering skills and legal documentation. Miguel, my son, became the neighborhood hero among his friends. My dad caught the package lady with a paint bomb, made him legendary at school. He started helping me with weekend security consultations, learning basic electrical skills while we installed camera systems for other theft victims. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my front porch watching Mrs. Sean tend her rose garden while neighborhood kids play in the street without fear of clipboard-wielding dictators measuring their sidewalk chalk art. The evening air carries the sound of normal suburban life. Lawnmowers, dinner conversations, and the absence of designer heels clicking ominously on sidewalks. A delivery truck pulls up to drop off a package at my doorstep. The driver waves, I wave back, and my package sits there safely until I'm ready to bring it inside. No surveillance, no theft, no drama. Just normal life in a normal neighborhood. The system works when good people stand up to bullies. Sometimes justice comes in purple packages, delivered exactly when you need it most.
You know, Jack Martinez could have just kept quiet, move his deliveries to his office, avoid the whole mess. That's what most people do when someone like Brenda starts throwing around those $75 fines for grass. That 3.1 inches instead of 3.0. But here's the thing about people like Brenda worse. They count on that. They count on you packing down, finding workarounds, just dealing with it. Because as long as you're dealing with it quietly, they can keep doing what they're doing to the next person and the next one after that. The purple dye pack was brilliant, sure, but that wasn't really what got her. It was Jack spending those nights documenting everything, learning the actual rules instead of just accepting whatever she told him they were. Building that case, piece by piece, while she thought she was untouchable. Mrs. Son's still HOA president over there, by the way. Funny how things work out when you get someone in charge who actually, lives in the real world. Makes me wonder how many neighborhoods have their own version of Brenda right now. Someone with a clipboard and just enough authority to make life miserable for folks who just want to live in peace. Have you dealt with something like this? Maybe not packet theft, but that person who treats the HOA like their personal kingdom. I'll be curious to hear about it in the comments. And hey, if this story hits home for you, go ahead and subscribe. There's a lot more where it came from. Unfortunately, sometimes the best thing you can do is just be ready. Know the rules better than they do.